Chapter 1. The Illusion of a Peaceful Mind. You don't find peace by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are beyond those circumstances. Eckhart Tolle. The mind's false promise. We often believe that peace is something the mind can find. We imagine that if we just meditate enough, read the right books, or fix our external problems, we will finally silence the inner noise. But this belief itself is the first illusion. The truth is more unsettling. The mind is not designed for peace. It is a machine for thinking, analyzing, comparing, and predicting. Even when things are going well, the mind will search for potential threats or problems to solve. Peace, as we imagine it, a silent, still, unshakable state, is something the mind can glimpse but never hold.
Chasing stillness in a storm. Consider Sarah, a high-achieving professional who began suffering from anxiety. To calm her nerves, she tried everything: yoga, silent retreats, daily affirmations, and guided meditations. For a short time, each technique worked. Her mind would settle temporarily. But soon it would return to its restless patterns: worries about the future, self-criticism, the need to control. The more she chased peace, the more elusive it became. She began to realize something startling. Her efforts to quiet the mind were only adding more layers of mental activity. Her mind was trying to solve the problem of itself, a loop with no exit. The paradox of inner peace. Here's the paradox. You cannot think your way to peace. The mind's very function, to think, is incompatible with the state of peace. It's like trying to calm water by stirring it. We're conditioned to believe that if we work hard enough, we can achieve peace as a goal. But peace is not an achievement. It is a background presence that is only noticed when the mind stops interfering. True peace isn't created, it is uncovered. It reveals itself when the mind grows quiet, not through force, but through awareness.
Practical exercises. Reflection journal. Think of a time when you tried to achieve mental peace, maybe through deep breathing, a vacation, or reading a spiritual book. How long did the peace last? What happened when the mind came back online with its thoughts and worries? Did the attempt to be peaceful make you more restless in the end? Awareness practice. The next time you try to relax or meditate, don't resist the mind's activity. Instead, observe it. Watch how the mind reacts to stillness. Does it resist? Does it jump from thought to thought? Can you notice the space in which the thoughts appear? Summary. Stepping outside the mind. The mind, by its very nature, is restless. It constantly seeks something, even when that something is peace. But because it is always reaching, grasping, solving, it cannot rest. Trying to find peace through the mind is like asking fire to freeze. It contradicts its nature. True peace arises not from controlling the mind, but from seeing that you are not the mind. You are the awareness behind it, the quiet space where peace already exists. Chapter 2. The Mind as the Source of Suffering. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Haruki Murakami. Beyond the surface of pain. Most of us believe suffering comes from the outside, a breakup, a loss, a failure, a betrayal. But if we look closely, we find something deeper at work, something more subtle and constant, the mind's reaction to life. The truth is this:
Suffering is not caused by events themselves, but by the mind's interpretations, stories, and resistance to what is. The pain may begin from the outside, but suffering continues inside, fed by thought. The cycle of mental suffering. The mind clings to desire, wanting things to be different, better, safer. It holds on to attachments, to identity, to status, to love, to outcomes. And it fears loss, failure, judgment, and uncertainty. These are not passive states, they are active mental loops. The mind doesn't simply experience a moment of discomfort, it revisits it, analyzes it, projects it into the future. It's not the rejection itself that torments you. It's the endless questioning. Why did it happen? What does it say about me? Will it happen again?
Real-life example. The trap of success. Consider Daniel, a successful entrepreneur. On paper, he has it all: financial security, recognition, and the luxurious lifestyle. Yet he finds himself constantly anxious, comparing himself to competitors, stressing over growth targets, and fearing irrelevance. Despite external success, his internal world is ruled by expectations, comparisons, and a relentless pressure to prove himself. What's causing his suffering? Not the world, but his mind's constant need for more, better, safer. Until he sees this pattern clearly, no amount of outer achievement can bring peace. The optional nature of suffering. When we begin to observe the mind, really watch it, we realize something transformative. The suffering is in the story. Yes, pain exists, life will challenge us, but the extra layer of mental torment, the resentment, regret, fear, shame, is optional. It is built in the mind and sustained by our identification with thought. This doesn't mean we ignore problems, but it means we stop feeding the suffering machine with our unconscious thinking. Practical exercises. 1. Thought-based distress review. List 3 situations from your life where the mental reaction, not the actual event, caused the most suffering. What did your mind say in those moments? Were there recurring themes, fear of loss, perfectionism, self-doubt? What patterns do you notice? 2. Thought observation practice. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Sit still, close your eyes, and just observe your thoughts. Don't try to stop or control them. Imagine each thought as a cloud drifting across the sky. Simply watch, without judgment or involvement. Doing this regularly builds awareness, and awareness is what breaks the cycle. Liberation begins with recognition. The root of suffering lies not in the world, but in the mind, in its clinging, resisting, comparing, and fearing. The moment we see this clearly, we begin to reclaim our freedom. We may not be able to stop pain, but we can stop suffering. It begins by no longer believing every thought, and by recognizing the mind for what it is, a tool that often turns on its owner. Chapter 3. The Ego and Its Discontents. The ego is not who you really are. The ego is your self-image. It is your social mask, your role. It thrives on approval. It wants control, and it is sustained by power because it lives in fear. The birth of the ego. From early childhood, the mind begins crafting an identity, a story of who we are. I'm smart. I'm unworthy. I'm a leader. I'm not good enough.
These labels, formed from experience, memory, praise, and criticism, solidify into what we call the ego, the mental construct of me. The ego isn't evil, it's simply mistaken. It believes that we are this image, this fragile self that must be defended, improved, admired, and separated from others. And in doing so, it becomes a source of endless striving, anxiety, and conflict. The ego's game: comparison, control, and specialness. The ego lives in a constant state of comparison. It wants to be better, richer, more successful, more admired than others. It fears being ordinary, invisible, or wrong. To maintain its sense of identity, the ego seeks control of people, outcomes, and appearances. It believes that if it can manage everything perfectly, it will finally feel secure. But control is a fantasy, and the attempt to hold it only breeds tension. The ego also wants to feel special, unique, important, significant. But this need separates us from others. Instead of connection, we feel competition. Instead of peace, we feel pressure. The more the ego wins, the more it wants. And when it loses, when it feels insulted, ignored, or rejected, it lashes out or collapses. Either way, peace is nowhere to be found. The manager who burned out. Take Michael, a corporate manager. He rose quickly through the ranks, driven by a deep need for recognition and status. He worked nights, missed family events, and micromanaged his team, fearing that anything less than perfection would expose him as unworthy. Eventually, he earned the promotion he had been chasing, but along the way, he lost his joy, strained his marriage, and alienated his colleagues. Still, he couldn't stop. The ego kept whispering, "You're only as good as your next win." The suffering wasn't coming from the job. It came from the identity he built and his fear of losing it. Seeing through the illusion. The ego feels real because we're so used to identifying with our thoughts and roles. But if you pause and watch, you'll notice something. The ego is just a pattern of thoughts. It is not who you truly are. You are the awareness behind those thoughts, the quiet presence that doesn't need to prove anything. When you see this clearly, the grip of the ego begins to loosen, and with it, the weight of constant striving. Practical exercises. 1. Ego reflection. Identify one desire in your life that is clearly ego-driven, such as needing to win an argument, seeking approval, or wanting to outperform others. Ask yourself, what would happen if I let go of this need? How much peace or stress has this desire brought me? 2. Small ego surrender. Today, choose one small opportunity to let go of the ego's need for control or recognition. Don't correct someone even if they're wrong. Let someone else take credit. Don't explain yourself unnecessarily. Then reflect. How did that feel? What did you lose, and what did you gain? Dissolving the ego, finding freedom. The ego is a creation of the mind, a survival strategy turned identity. It seeks control, praise, and separation. But in doing so, it brings suffering. To be free, we don't need to kill the ego, but see through it. Freedom doesn't come from building a stronger identity, but from realizing that you are not that identity at all. You are the silent, peaceful awareness beneath it, and in that awareness, nothing is missing. Chapter 4. The Limitations of Thought. The intellect has little to do on the road to discovery. There comes a leap in consciousness, All great discoveries have involved such a leap. Albert Einstein. The mind's favorite tool. Thought is the mind's primary instrument. It solves problems, builds civilizations, writes books, and makes plans. Thought is powerful, but it's also limited. We often forget this. We come to believe that if we just think hard enough, we'll uncover the truth, find peace, and understand life. But this is an illusion. Thought can only point to reality. It can never be reality itself. Concept versus experience. Imagine seeing a flower. Immediately your mind says, rose, red, pretty. But in that moment of naming, you are no longer seeing the flower. You are seeing the concept of it, filtered through language, memory, and thought. Thought reduces the richness of life into categories and labels. It turns the living moment into a mental file. Instead of feeling joy, we analyze why we're happy. Instead of tasting a meal fully, we compare it to past ones. Instead of being with someone, we judge or recall who they were yesterday. Thought is always one step removed from now.
The philosopher's dilemma. Consider Elena, a brilliant philosopher who spent decades studying the meaning of life. She explored every theory, existentialism, metaphysics, nihilism. But no matter how refined her arguments became, something was missing. One day, while walking alone in nature, she stopped thinking. She simply watched the trees sway, listened to the birds, and felt the breeze on her skin. In that stillness, she felt a deep peace, not from any theory, but from direct presence. She realized truth is not an answer, it's an experience. All those years of thought had built a beautiful map, but it had never taken her to the place itself. The trap of overthinking. Overthinking is when thought tries to do more than it's designed for. It tries to solve emotions. It tries to control uncertainty. It tries to predict every outcome. But life isn't a math problem, and so the more we think, the more confused, anxious, and disconnected we often feel. Thought wants clarity, but sometimes it only creates more noise. Real clarity comes not from more thinking, but from stepping beyond thought.
Practical exercises. 1. Presence with an object. Choose a simple object, a flower, a candle, a leaf. Sit with it for a few minutes. Don't name it. Don't analyze it. Just observe it in silence. Notice what happens when you engage with life directly, not through thought, but through awareness. 2. Overthinking awareness. Reflect on a recent time when overthinking stole your peace. What were you trying to solve or control? Did thinking make the situation clearer or more tangled? What would it have felt like to simply be with the moment instead? Summary. Beyond the walls of thought. Thought is a powerful servant, but a poor master. It helps us navigate the world, but it cannot be the world. It builds ideas about love, truth, and happiness, but it cannot taste them. Spiritual awakening begins when we recognize thought's limits and stop mistaking it for truth. In that quiet beyond thought, we rediscover something the mind cannot give us, direct connection to life itself.
Chapter 5. The Power of Presence. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Eckhart Tolle. The Gateway to Peace. After all the mind's analysis, questioning, and striving, something surprising happens when we stop. We discover presence. Presence is not a concept. It is a direct, felt experience of being fully here, now. It's the moment when thought pauses and you simply exist without needing to label, fix, or change anything. In presence, there is no past to regret, no future to worry about. There is just this moment, and it is enough. What presence really means? Presence is not about sitting in silence for hours. It's not limited to meditation or retreat. Presence is the shift from being lost in thought to being grounded in awareness. It's the feeling of your feet on the ground, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of wind in the trees, the breath entering and leaving your body. These things are always here. What changes is our attention. When we are present, we are no longer trapped in the mind stories, and in that space, we find peace.
Real-life example. The artist in flow. Imagine Amara, a painter. When she begins painting, she feels unsure, distracted. But soon something shifts. She becomes absorbed in the colors, the brushstrokes, the movement. Hours pass, thoughts fade into the background. She isn't thinking, she's being. She's not trying to find peace, she is peace. This is the power of presence. When you're fully in the moment, you lose your mind and find yourself. Presence interrupts the mind's noise. The mind is like a spinning wheel, always projecting into the future or replaying the past. Presence doesn't try to stop the wheel, it simply steps off. Each time we return to now, to the breath, the body, the senses, we unplug from the mind's constant narrative. And in that stillness we remember, peace isn't something we achieve, it's something we return to.
Practical exercises. Mindful task practice. Choose a simple daily activity, like brushing your teeth, washing dishes, or walking. As you do it, pay full attention to the sensations, the temperature of the water, the movement of your hands, the sound of each step. If the mind drifts, gently return to your senses. This transforms the ordinary into a doorway to presence. Breathing awareness. Pause now and take 10 slow, deep breaths. With each inhale, notice the air filling your lungs. With each exhale, feel your body softening. Let each breath anchor you to this moment, simple, alive, complete. Summary: the gift of now. Presence is not a practice we perform. It is our natural state when thought quiets. It is the stillness beneath the noise, the peace that exists before the mind tells us there is a problem. In presence, we stop chasing peace and realize we are already home. Chapter 6. Awakening to the Now. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Rumi. The shift that changes everything. Spiritual awakening isn't something mystical or reserved for monks on mountaintops. It's a shift, a simple yet profound change in perception. Before awakening, we live trapped in the mind's chatter, believing we are our thoughts, our stories, our roles. After awakening, we see clearly. We are the awareness behind all of it. This shift doesn't come from effort, fixing, or intellectual understanding. It comes from something much simpler: being fully present. The present moment as a doorway. The mind lives in time, past and future, but your true self lives in the now. Present is not just peace, it's a doorway. When we step fully into now, we step out of the mind's illusions and come home to ourselves. We no longer identify with the thinker, we observe it. We no longer chase happiness, we rest in being. Real-life example. Sunset stillness. Consider Sophia, a mother and businesswoman who lived in constant stress, always planning, solving, rushing. One evening, exhausted, she sat alone and watched the sunset. For a moment, her mind stopped. No plans, no problems, just light, color, stillness. And in that moment, something woke up inside her, not new, but deeply familiar. She didn't think it, she felt it. I am not my stress. I am this awareness. I've been here all along. This is awakening, not a belief, a direct realization. From mind identified to awareness based. Most of us walk through life as if we are our thoughts. I am anxious. I am not good enough. I need to be more. But these are just mental stories. Awakening happens when we stop believing every thought and start noticing the silent presence that hears them. You are not your mind. You are the space in which the mind appears.
Practical exercises. 1. Inquiry meditation. What is here when thoughts stop? Sit in silence for 10 minutes. Let thoughts come and go without following them. Gently ask yourself, what is here when thoughts stop? Don't look for an answer. Just notice the stillness, the aliveness, the awareness itself. 2. Presence reflection. Recall the time when you felt deeply present, maybe in nature, with a loved one, or in stillness. What made that moment different? Was your mind active or quiet? How did it feel in your body and heart? Write about it, not as a memory, but as a doorway back into now. Summary. The truth is already here. Awakening doesn't mean becoming better or more spiritual. It means waking up from the dream of the mind and recognizing what has always been true. You are awareness itself, peaceful, still, whole, and it lives in the now. The journey is not upward or outward, it is inward, into the still presence you already are.
Chapter 7. Transcending the Mind. The Mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master, by Robin Sharma. Beyond thought, beyond self. To transcend the mind doesn't mean destroying it, escaping it, or rejecting it. The mind is useful. It helps us function, plan, and communicate. But when we become identified with its thoughts, we become prisoners of its limitations. To transcend the mind is to shift from being the thinker to being the observer. It's a movement from mental noise to still awareness, from doing to being. This is not a belief or a philosophy. It's a lived experience, a deep inner quiet where the separate sense of me begins to dissolve. The identity shift from thought to awareness. Most of us define ourselves by our thoughts. I am my opinions. I am my memories. I am my emotions. But these are only contents of consciousness, not the consciousness itself. Who are you without them? Who are you before thought names you? That is the heart of spiritual realization. You are not the thoughts. You are the one who is aware of them. In this recognition, the false identity, the ego, begins to fall away. What remains is spacious, still, and free. Real-life example, yoga and pure awareness. Consider Ravi,
a dedicated yoga practitioner. In a deep meditation after practice, he feels his breath slow, his thoughts dissolve. Suddenly, there's no ravi, no effort, just still presence. He later describes it as a moment where time disappeared, identity melted, and he felt vast, not as a person, but as pure being. This wasn't imagination. It was a glimpse beyond the mind, a direct taste of the freedom that arises when thought is no longer in control.
Tools for transcendence, meditation and self-inquiry. Two core practices help us move beyond the mind. 1. Meditation. Not to silence thought by force, but to become still enough to notice the space between and behind thoughts. With time, the silence becomes more familiar than the noise. 2. Self-inquiry. Ask questions that gently unravel the illusion of a separate self. Who am I without my thoughts? What watches the thinker? Where is the I that claims to suffer? These are not questions to answer intellectually. They are doors to experience. Practical exercises. 1. The inquiry, who am I without my thoughts? Sit quietly for 10 minutes. Let thoughts come and go. Each time a thought arises, gently ask, who am I without this? Don't look for an answer. Just feel the silence that remains. 2. Not mine practice. Throughout the day, when a thought arises, especially a negative or reactive one, mentally say, not mine. Watch it pass, like a cloud drifting by. With repetition, you'll begin to see, you are not the voice in your head. You are the sky it moves through. Summary. Freedom beyond identification. Transcending the mind is not about escaping life. It's about waking up to life as it truly is. When you no longer identify with every thought and emotion, you discover the vast, open awareness that is your true nature. You are not the story. You are the space in which the story unfolds. And in that space, there is no fear, no lack, no separation, only freedom. Chapter 8. The Path of Meditation. Meditation is not a way of making your mind quiet. It's a way of entering into the quiet that's already there, buried under the 50,000 thoughts the average person thinks every day. Deepak Chopra. A bridge to stillness. In our journey toward peace and awakening, meditation is not the destination, it is the path. The mind by nature is restless. Thoughts arise endlessly, pulling us into worries, memories, and distractions. But meditation gives us a way to step out of this stream, not by force, but through gentle attention. Meditation is the practice of returning, again and again, to presence. Over time, this return builds a powerful inner stability, allowing awareness to shine through the noise.
What meditation really does. Meditation isn't about having no thoughts. It's about changing your relationship to them. You learn to observe without reacting. You notice the arising and passing of feelings. You rest in the awareness that watches everything unfold. Through this process, something incredible happens. The mind begins to settle. The heart begins to soften, and you begin to remember who you are beneath the busyness.
Different paths, same destination. There is no single right way to meditate. Different techniques suit different people, but all serve the same purpose, to quiet the surface so the depths can be felt. 1. Mindfulness meditation.
Pay attention to your breath, your body, or your environment, moment by moment, without judgment. 2. Guided visualization. Listen to a calming voice that takes you through imagery, a forest, a light, a safe space to anchor your awareness. 3. Loving-kindness, metta. Send well wishes to yourself and others, cultivating compassion and connection. 4. Body scan. Move your attention through the body, noticing sensations and releasing tension. The technique is not what matters most. What matters is consistency, sincerity, and patience. Real-life example: the parent who found peace. Alicia, a working mother of 2, struggled with constant overwhelm. Her mind raced from one task to the next, and even brief moments of rest were filled with anxiety. At first, meditation seemed impossible, too slow, too quiet for her fast-moving world. But she committed to just 15 minutes each morning, focusing on her breath. The results were subtle but powerful. She became more patient with her kids. She noticed her reactions before they exploded. She began to experience moments of peace, not because her life changed, but because her inner space expanded.
Practical exercises. 1. Simple breath meditation. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Bring attention to your breath. Feel each inhale and exhale. When thoughts distract you, gently return to the breath. Practice for 10 minutes. There's no need to do it right, just be present. 2. Reflection journal. After meditation, write about your experience. What thoughts kept arising? What was difficult? Did you notice moments of calm or clarity? This helps you bring awareness to the inner process and track your deepening presence. Summary: the mind learns stillness. Meditation is training for the mind, not to suppress it, but to understand it. With regular practice, it becomes easier to rest in awareness even when life is chaotic. And in those quiet gaps between thoughts, we catch glimpses of something profound. The peace that has always been here, waiting patiently beneath the surface. Chapter 9. Living Beyond the Mind. Don't seek the meaning of life. Simply be present for the life that is unfolding. Eckhart Tolle. From awakening to application. It's one thing to experience presence in meditation or a quiet moment, but the real transformation begins when presence becomes your way of living. Awakening is not a finish line. It's a way of being, moment by moment, breath by breath, rooted not in thought, but in awareness. To live beyond the mind means that your actions no longer come from fear, reaction, or mental stories. They come from clarity, stillness, and deep inner knowing. Letting awareness lead. The mind wants to analyze, defend, fix, and react. But awareness doesn't need to do any of that. It simply sees, and from that seeing, wise action arises. When you live from presence, you begin to notice. You respond instead of react. You listen without planning your reply. You make decisions not from fear or ego, but from inner clarity. You stop trying to control everything and start flowing with life. This isn't passivity. It's power rooted in peace.
Presence in the classroom. Mr. Chen, a high school teacher, used to feel overwhelmed by disruptions in his classroom. He'd react with frustration, trying to assert control. But after developing a presence practice, he approached conflict differently. One day, when 2 students got into an argument, he paused, took a breath, and stayed rooted in awareness. Instead of reacting emotionally, he responded calmly, and the energy in the room shifted. He didn't suppress his feelings, he simply didn't identify with them. From that moment on, his classroom became more grounded. He led from presence, and the students felt it. From story to stillness. The biggest challenge in living beyond the mind is the pull of thought. They shouldn't treat me that way. I need to fix this now. What if something goes wrong? These are just stories. Living beyond the mind means seeing them as such and choosing not to be controlled by them. You begin to live not as your thoughts, but alongside them, anchored in the deeper awareness underneath.
Practical exercises. 1. Responding from awareness. The next time you feel upset, irritated, or reactive, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask, what is the most conscious response I can give right now? Act not from emotion, but from presence. 2. Mental chatter reflection. At the end of the day, take a few minutes to journal. Was there less mental noise today? Were there moments of quiet awareness? How did it feel to act from presence rather than thought? Notice the small shifts. These are the roots of a transformed life. Summary. Life as awareness in action. To live beyond the mind is not to abandon life. It's to finally show up for it fully. You still feel emotions, have thoughts, and face challenges, but you are no longer caught in the web of reaction. You are aware. You are present. You are free. In this space, life flows with more ease, more clarity, and more compassion, because it is no longer led by fear, but by awareness.
Chapter 10. The Awakened Life. Enlightenment is when the wave realizes it is the ocean, Thich Nhat Hanh, the flowering of awareness. Awakening is not a distant peak only reached by saints or sages. It is the return to your original nature. It is the deep, quiet recognition that you are not the thoughts, fears, or roles you've been identified with. You are the presence behind it all. When you live from this awareness, life transforms, not necessarily on the outside, but profoundly on the inside. Peace, joy, compassion, and creativity begin to flow not as goals to achieve, but as natural expressions of being. The end of suffering. Suffering, as we've seen throughout this journey, is rooted in the mind's illusions, in the stories it tells about who you are, what should be, and what's missing. But when you stop letting the mind define your reality, a deeper truth emerges. Nothing needs to be added. You are already whole. Awakening isn't about escaping life. It's about meeting life fully, without resistance, without illusion. You begin to live in harmony with what is, not from effort, but from understanding.
Real-life example. The peace of simplicity. After retiring, Maya found herself inspired by spiritual teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh. She let go of the need to achieve or prove. She lived simply, tending a small garden, cooking with care, speaking with gentleness. Neighbors noticed something different. She seemed light. Her words carried warmth. She didn't try to be kind. She was kindness. Maya had discovered something deeper than philosophy, a way of being that radiates peace without saying a word. What the awakened life feels like? In the awakened life, the mind still functions, but it no longer dominates. Emotions still arise, but they are witnessed with compassion. Challenges still appear, but they are met from presence, not panic. There is space around everything. There is clarity without control. There is love that needs no reason. And perhaps most beautifully, there is no need to become anything. Just being is enough. Practical exercises. 1. Visioning the awakened you. Sit quietly and imagine.
If you were fully awake to the present moment, if you were no longer ruled by thought, if your actions came from awareness, not fear, how would you live? How would you speak? How would you love? Write it down. Let it guide you. 2. 1 moment of presence a day. Each day, set a simple intention. Today, I will notice 1 moment of pure presence. It could be while sipping tea, watching a bird, feeling your breath. That 1 moment is enough to remember what's real.
A liberated way of being. The awakened life is not perfect, it's real. It doesn't promise an escape from all difficulty, but it offers freedom from suffering's root, identification with the mind. In awakening, the mind becomes a servant, not a master. Presence becomes your compass, and life becomes what it was always meant to be, not a problem to solve, but a miracle to experience. Final reflection. You don't need to add anything to yourself to awaken. You only need to stop looking outside and return to the stillness within. It's here, now, always. You are already home.